everyone, today is the most glorious day. I cannot believe how beautiful this weekend's going to be. It's still a bit chilly and it got down to like -2 last night, but the sun's out and it just feels incredible, and we are so happy to be out in the garden. Now today Richard and I are tackling this border here. This is our dahlia bed and we're going to be cutting things back, moving a few plants that are too close to the edge. We're going to be, I'm going to have to prune the roses. We've got some lovely gorgeous eustachiae in the middle of the border here that I absolutely adore, and they need their winter prune. It is the 1st of March today, so we're right in it's a perfect time to be pruning roses, and so I'll go through that. But I've also got some fabulous plants that we're going to be dotting in amongst this border here, and I just can't wait to get started. It's such a lovely day. So I'll just go through where we are. This is the big rose arch we have here, and then this is the border we're going to be tackling. We call it the dahlia border because the very first time we created this border, we had loads of dahlias in it. It's just easier to refer to it that way, and it's one of the names Richard seems to be able to remember. Now this here is an aquilegia that I bought some years ago, but I don't really love the colour. It's very pale and pastely and washed out. So I'm going to dig up this aquilegia, put it in a pot, and if I can find somewhere else that it would look good. It's quite tall, it gets pretty tall, but I just don't really love the colour very much. So yeah, we'll pot it up and then maybe plant it somewhere else if I feel like it. This is a boscabel rose that I'm going to have to cut back, and then we have started weeding this part of the border, but what we've got is we've got some achillea or yarrow along the front edge here, and it tends to sort of flop over the edge a bit too much, so I want to move that backwards. And then as we come along here is a penstemon apple blossom, and this one is just too close to the edge, so I need to dig that one out and move it back a bit. And then we've just got absolutely loads of Verbena bonariensis, which I adore. It gets pretty tall, but what I want to do is cut that all back to ground level, and if it's very close to the edge, then I'm going to chop it out. Cosmo's come to join us. At the front here, we've got some gorgeous campanula called Tycon White. It's quite short, but it does flower really well. But in amongst it, we've got some self-seeded foxgloves and things, and they're just going to get too tall. So I want to move them further towards the middle of the border. Then I've got some geraniums just behind the campanula there, and I have a few more to add just to create just a bigger bunch of them basically. We also have some heuchera. Now this is an Eleagnus called Quicksilver, which I adore, but what happens is when it leaves out, it creates quite a lot of shade in this area, so I'm going to be planting some heuchera in that spot there. So here we can see some phlox that's just starting to bud up, so I need to cut all of that foliage back. We've also got some asclepias or milkweed that needs to be cut back. Our tulips are coming up. So this here is the patch of eustachiae, and it's mixed in with some salvia. I think it's called Ocean Pearl, something like that. I'll put the name up on the screen. But these 3 eustachiae need a really good prune. I absolutely adore this rose. And then we've just got some more things, like there's another Verbena bonariensis along the edge here that needs to be moved further back, because what happens is it just flops. And then there's just some general tidying up that needs to be done in this area. So we did tackle the front of this border. I mean, we call it the front, it's the south facing side of this border earlier on in the year, and I think it's looking pretty good, but I will check it for weeds and anything else that needs cutting back. I think I've got a Rebeckia here that needs to be cut back. It's kind of leaning over, and there's also some Veronicastrum which are quite tall, and they do look pretty in the winter, but that's enough now. I've had enough of them, so I'll cut those back down to ground level too. So everything is just going to get a really good tidy, and I'm just going to get cracking with it, and I will get Richard, who's currently down there doing some weeding. I'm going to get him to come and help me because it's just easier and more fun if we do it together. So this border where Richard's working is a new border that we're creating. So this was always the intention, was to have another border down here leading to the brick arch, which was here when we first arrived. And it did used to be a border, but it was full, absolutely full of ground elder. It still is, and brambles and things like that. There's a helicopter. I hope you can hear me. We haven't got round to making this bed. We've been, busy making all the other beds. So we've made the dahlia bed, we made the grass border, we made the bottom border down there. And so this is now our next job, and we really want it to look good because this summer we're having my son and daughter-in-law's wedding celebration in this garden, and this arch is going to kind of be the entrance to the marquee, and so we need this border to get sorted. So we're working on it gradually, and then I've got loads of plants to put in, so stay tuned if you want to see us creating this border here. So I'm just going to tackle this Boscobel rose. There is another one the other side of the arch, but I pruned that one earlier on when I was pruning the climbing roses. But I'm not going to go into too much detail about how I'm doing it because I've done loads of videos about that. So do take a look at my rose pruning videos if you're interested. But we want to create a vase shape, take out anything dead, diseased or damaged, and I'm going to take off anything that's less than pencil thickness because that won't be able to hold up the roses. And I'm just going to chop it back to sort of knee height. So this is a Verbena bonariensis. I'm going to cut that right back. Someone asked me recently how my seedlings for Verbena bonariensis did, but actually just literally doing this will just create loads of verbena. It grows so easily in my garden, it just self-seeds all the time. This is a hydrangea phantom, and I need to move it into the middle of the border a bit, and I'm trying to give it a little bit more sun. I planted it way too close to the edge because this border used to be half the size it is now. It has doubled in size and width, and so things that I thought were in the middle of the border aren't in the middle of the border anymore. If I look like I've been through a hedge backwards, it's because I have. Had to grovel around amongst loads of stuff. So I've cut back the Eustacia Vi roses, which are absolutely gorgeous. I'm so happy with those roses, I can't tell you. Most incredible colour. Don't ask me about the scent, because they're not really somewhere that we'll appreciate the scent, but they are stunning. But what I have done is I've left the salvia, because salvias sometimes, if you cut them back too hard at this time of year, then they don't recover. And I've had that problem with the icing sugar salvias in the corridor bed that we have. I cut them back too hard one year, and so they're kind of lopsided now. So I'm going to leave those salvias and cut them back when the weather warms up a little bit, probably in March. So for now, it still looks a little bit messy, but that's fine. At least they're healthy and they've got leaves on, and you know, I know that they're going to survive. We've moved loads of foxgloves and Verbena bonariensis from the edge of the border back to the middle of the border, because they're tall and they can cope with the middle of the border. Every single self-seeded aquilegia has been removed, because I don't really love the self-seeded ones. I prefer to choose my colours rather than having something self-seeded in a border where maybe the colour doesn't look right, or it's just a bit scrappy. So I'm kind of going off aquilegias a little bit, actually, in all honesty. What else have we done? We've moved 2 hydrangeas that were kind of on the shady side of the border, but they were too close to the edge. Again, it's from when we doubled this border. So the border used to be half the width. And so when I planted them closer to this edge, they were in the right place, but we've moved them so that they're more central, and I think they'll be appreciated more. One was a phantom hydrangea, and the other 2 I think were Ville France, something like that. I'll put the names and pictures up on the screen, and they're still babies, they're tiny, they haven't really flowered that much. I've cut back the Rebeckia, I've cut back the Veronicastrum, and just generally we've weeded. So I think it looks so much better. We do need to edge the border, and I'm looking into edging at the moment, so that we can have something straight, because I find this really annoying, the way it's sort of wiggly. I want the border edges to look much neater than this. So we need to figure out what we're going to do there. But what we're going to do now is do some planting. So next to the Boscobel roses, I am planting a salvia called Angel Wings. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's going to grow to about 50 by 45 centimetres, and it's got these delicate two-tone pinky petals. They sort of pale towards the edges, they've got a darker bit in the middle, and the stems, the fresh growth on the stems is supposedly darker towards the top, but they're kind of woody at the moment because they're in their winter state. So I'm putting 2 round this Boscobel, and then there'll be 2 round the Boscobel that's over on this side over here. If you're new to my channel, what we're sprinkling in the base of each planting hole is just a general multi-purpose fertiliser, and I'll link it in the description below because a lot of people ask me what it is. It's not the Miracle Grow that you can see in this box. That's just a tub we use because it's small and easy to carry around, and we bulk buy the fertiliser. So these plants that Richard is planting now are Sweet Rocket. I grew these from seed, and I'll put the dates up on the screen because I can't remember offhand when I sowed them, but these were sown last summer, and I've been growing them on in the cold frames since then. So this is a white Sweet Rocket, and I think it's going to look really pretty. So what I have here is a white hardy hibiscus, but it leaves out really late in the season. So I think having some tall white flowers here is going to just bring that bit of whiteness to this part of the border. So these 3 plants, and then the 3 plants just past Richard over there, are exactly the same thing. And this is a monarda. This is a monarda called Mellower Apple Blossom. I think it's also called White Blush, or it may be White Blush is the new name. But they're going to grow to 60 by 40 centimetres, sort of 2 foot by 1.5 foot. And I'm planting lots of things in groups of 3s because I think it looks better. And I am planting these close together so that they form a nice sort of mound. I want them to look like a clump. And Mellower Apple Blossom is a gorgeous pale pink monarda. It's really pretty. I've not grown it before, but apparently it's going to flower from midsummer right through to autumn, and it's slightly fragrant, so that should be quite exciting. The Mellower series is more compact, and Monarda like full sun to part shade, but I've pretty much got them in full sun here. I think they're going to be stunning, and I think Monarda also looks quite good in the winter, like if the foliage doesn't collapse. I think like the spikiness of the flowers looks quite good through the winter, so it's a nice bit of extra structure. And I think the pink, the pale pink here, this area round here, I tend to have whites and pale pinks, and that's the snapdragons and the dahlias that I plant sort of this side of the border, so I think the Monarda is going to look particularly good with all of those. These Monarda came as small plug plants in the autumn. They were delivered, I bought them online, they were delivered as small plug plants, and I potted them up into these little pots and just to help them grow roots until I planted them out. What we're planting over here are some forget-me-nots. I really fancy having the blue this side of the border. These also came as really little plug plants, and I potted them up and they've been growing through the winter. I'm planting them in groups of 3 really close together because I want a really decent clump now, and then hopefully they'll self-seed or I'll be able to divide these clumps in the future. But I'm really hoping this spring to have like nice little spots of blue. So we've got some over there and then some more here. These are a forget-me-not called compendii or compendi, and they've got apparently really intense, like the bluest of the blue forget-me-nots. So these are a gorgeous heuchera called Berry Smoothie. They've got these brilliant, well, they're not brilliant actually, they're just a really nice coloured red petal, sort of wine coloured maybe, with brighter undersides, and I really like them. And I just really need a little bit of colour the other side of the Eleagnus, because it does create quite a bit of shade. So that side I'm sort of putting things that can tolerate more shade. They will get quite a lot of morning sun actually, but as the sun goes round, the rest of the day they're going to be in shade, and I think the heuchera are going to get really nice there. I do have a couple more of these heuchera, but they're part of my tablescape at the moment on the garden table in pots, so I'll move those over here when I come to empty the pots later in the year. I think the contrast of the red foliage from this heuchera and the campanula Tycon white is going to look really nice. This spot here are some more sweet rocket that I grew from seed. What we're planting here are some wallflowers that I grew from seed. I sowed them last year, and I'll put the dates up on the screen because I can't remember them. But this wallflower is called Ray's Early Giants. So they're supposedly going to get really tall, but actually they've really struggled with slug damage, even though I've had them in my cold frames. So they've been eaten a lot over the winter. That's the reason I didn't plant them out earlier, because I thought they'd be safer in the cold frame, but actually they've just struggled quite a lot. Anyway, planting them out now, we'll see how they do. There's no guarantee that they're going to be giant at this stage because I don't think they've got particularly good root balls. We're planting here are some more wallflowers that I grew from seed. This is Newport Pink, which I absolutely adore. It's such a pretty colour. But these plants, again, they've just struggled so much through the winter. I possibly could have planted them out and they'd have done better, I don't know. We'll see how they do, but these are probably the worst Sweet Williams I've ever sown. So I'm planting them next to a phlox called Fashionably Early, which is really pretty, and I loved it last year. I'll pop some pictures up if I can find them, because I think it was so pretty, and I think the Newport Pink is going to set off the Fashionably Early perfectly, and they should flower at about the same time because the Fashionably Early does flower earlier than other phlox. These Sweet Williams are called Indian Carpet Mix, and they do form a carpet. They'll grow to about 15 centimetres tall, 20 centimetres wide, and they come in a range of colours. I think they're going to be really pretty on the corner of the border here. hydrangea is a paniculata called Ophelia, and I bought it as a bargain from a garden centre that I popped into, and I'm so happy with it. It looks like a really strong plant with loads of stems, but it's described as having colour changing, well, I think most hydrangeas do, but colour changing flowers which start off lemony yellow and then go to white and then pink, and then they finish off kind of red. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I've given it prime position here, so I'm really hoping it's going to flower well for me. I think the contrast with the Physocarpus, lady in red behind it, the foliage of that is a really deep purple. I think it's going to look excellent. It's also right in front of the Catalpa, which is this gorgeous, bright, vibrant, pale green, and I just think this colour combination is going to be wonderful. So we finished planting everything that we wanted to plant today. It's all done, and I'm super happy and really excited and looking forward to seeing this border with all the new plants in it. I can't wait to get my annuals in there and my dahlias and everything else that we plant through the season. But I think this is a really good start, and I'm so happy. I'm really glad that we moved some of the plants that were bugging me because they were too close to the edge. I also would love to have suggestions for what to edge these borders with. At the moment I'm looking at like corten steel and stuff like that, but I think it's quite complicated to put in, so I don't know what to do, but open to suggestions. If anyone's ever put a border in for their an edging for their border, I would really like to hear about it. Anyway, we're going to mulch the border now with well-rotted farmyard manure, and we just buy that in bags. We don't collect it from a farmyard or anything. If you do collect manure from a farmyard, just remember to let it mature properly, otherwise it'll burn your plants. I really find that this particular farmyard manure that we use is excellent. It adds structure, it adds nutrients, and it keeps the moisture in and acts as a weed barrier. So it does all the things you want a mulch to do, and I think it looks pretty. It looks more like soil than putting bark on top, which I also find just takes a long time to rot down, whereas the farmyard manure, the worms start working on it straight away. I really hope you found this interesting and useful and have had fun with us today as we planted up the dahlia border and dealt with all the problem plants that were in there. It feels like at the moment I've got a lot of problem plants because I'm always moving things, but I think that's part of gardening, to keep changing things up so that it suits you better or suits the plants better. You know, they do want to be, you know, right plant, right place. I'm a firm believer in that, and then the plants will be happy and look after themselves. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.